She handed him the package with a polite smile, never imagining that the delivery boy she dismissed so casually was actually the billionaire who had been quietly watching her world all along. Welcome back, my wonderful family and friends. If you're tuned in and ready to dive into today's story, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from. Tomorrow, I'll be bringing you another exciting story you definitely don't want to miss. So, let's get started. Clara adjusted the strap of her bag as she stepped into the bustling apartment lobby. The afternoon sun filtered through the glass doors, glinting off the polished floors. She had been running errands all day and had one more task to complete before heading home. Drop off a package she had promised her neighbor. As she approached the front desk, a young man in a simple uniform wheeled a hand truck nearby. "Delivery for 3B?" he asked, holding out a clipboard. His uniform was plain, his cap slightly crooked, and his shoes scuffed. Clara nodded, assuming he was just another delivery boy. She scribbled her signature, thanked him, and handed over the package without a second thought. The man smiled politely, a little awkwardly, as he took the package. Something about his eyes, though warm, observant, and not quite ordinary, made her pause for a heartbeat. But she shook it off and headed toward the elevator, convinced she had better things to worry about. Later that evening, Clara's neighbor, Mrs. Hawthorne, called to thank her. "You won't believe it, dear. That package was from a very important client, and the man delivering it." Her voice trailed off. He seemed unusually familiar somehow. Clara chuckled nervously. "Maybe he just had one of those faces, Mrs. Hawthorne. Easy to forget." She didn't know that, high above the city, the man she had dismissed was already thinking about her. Julian, billionaire owner of the global logistics empire that had supplied her package, had been running his company in disguise, delivering packages himself to observe the small moments of life he often missed behind glass walls and boardroom tables. And when he had seen her, Clara, cheerful and unassuming, yet radiating an energy that made him pause, something inside him had shifted. He had watched her from a distance, fascinated by her kindness, her unguarded laughter, her attention to little details others overlooked. That night, he replayed the encounter in his mind. How she had barely noticed him, how she had handed the package with casual grace, how a simple smile had captivated him more than any gala or luxury he had attended. For the first time in years, Julian felt something beyond wealth, status, or power. He felt curiosity, admiration, and something dangerously close to love. The next day, Julian returned to the building, this time officially, under the guise of corporate inspection. Clara barely looked up as she signed for another delivery, but Julian paused, catching her scent of coffee and vanilla, a detail he would remember forever. He cleared his throat, and she glanced up, startled. "Oh, it's you again," she said with a nervous laugh. "I didn't think I'd see the same delivery guy twice." Julian smiled, hiding the flicker of amusement that threatened to reveal more. "Small world, isn't it?" he replied, his voice steady but layered with intent. Clara smiled politely and turned to leave, but Julian's heart raced. He knew that behind her casual glance, there was nothing like the life he lived, and yet he couldn't stop thinking about her. He had to know her world, her thoughts, and whether she might ever see beyond the surface. The man she thought was a delivery boy, and the billionaire who had been quietly falling for her from the start. The next delivery, Julian decides to reveal just a small piece of himself, a hint of who he really is. But Clara's reaction isn't what he expected. Will she laugh, run, or see the truth of his heart? Have you ever met someone who surprised you completely once you got to know them? Comment below. What would you do if your delivery guy turned out to be a billionaire? The following week, Clara returned home from a long day at the bookstore, her arms full of boxes for her weekend charity event. She barely noticed the man standing by the building entrance, clipboard in hand. "Delivery for 7C?" he asked, voice warm but familiar. Clara froze for a split second, her brain ticking. It was him, the delivery boy from last week. She raised an eyebrow. "You again?" He smiled, shrugging slightly. "Seems like we keep running into each other." She laughed lightly, a little embarrassed. "I guess so. Small world. Huh. As she signed for the package, their hands brushed briefly, sending an unexpected warmth through her. She looked up at him, noticing for the first time the intensity of his gaze. His eyes weren't ordinary. They held a depth, curiosity, and something almost personal. "What's your name?" she asked on impulse. "Julian," he said smoothly, offering a hand. Clara shook it, surprised by the firmness and subtle warmth of his grip. For the next few minutes, they exchanged small talk, the kind of conversation that usually felt awkward with strangers but flowed naturally between them. Julian asked about her day, her favorite spots in the city, and even what inspired her love for books. Clara, usually reserved, found herself laughing, sharing small details she normally kept private. "Honestly," she said, smiling, "I don't meet people like you often. You seem different." Julian's heart skipped a beat. He wanted to tell her everything. About who he was, about how much he had been watching her, about how much he admired her. But he held back, letting the moment linger in mystery. "Different in a good way, I hope," he replied, his voice low, almost teasing. Their conversation was interrupted by the buzzer of her apartment building. Clara hesitated, glancing at him. "I guess I should go," she murmured. Julian nodded, a playful glint in his eyes. "Of course. Until next time." "Yes," she said softly, already anticipating the next encounter. That night, Julian couldn't stop thinking about her. He replayed every gesture, every laugh, every glance. She had ignored him once, but now she was willingly opening up, letting him in, even if she didn't know who he really was. Meanwhile, Clara found herself smiling at the memory of their conversation. Something about Julian stayed with her, the sincerity in his tone, the gentle curiosity in his eyes. She couldn't explain why, but her heart seemed to recognize him in a way her mind didn't fully understand. The spark between them was undeniable, though unspoken. A week passed in a blur of small encounters, each more charged than the last. Julian would arrive with packages, each time choosing moments that allowed them to talk, laugh, and share bits of their worlds. Clara began noticing little things. The way he remembered her favorite coffee order, the way he smiled when she mentioned a book she loved, the way his eyes softened whenever she laughed. But still, she didn't know the truth. She saw him as a delivery boy, a fleeting presence in her daily life. Julian, however, knew the truth, and each encounter strengthened his resolve. He had fallen for her quietly, fully, and completely. Then, one evening, as they shared a laugh over a spilled bag of flour from her baking class. She had been teaching a small group of kids, and Julian had volunteered to carry supplies. Julian finally decided he couldn't wait any longer. "Clara," he said, his voice soft but serious, "there's something I need to tell you." She looked up, sensing the sudden gravity in his tone. "What is it?" He took a deep breath, steadying his racing heart. "I'm not exactly who you think I am. I'm not just a delivery boy. I'm Julian Merrick, the CEO of Merrick Logistics, the company that delivers all these packages. It's mine." Clara's eyes widened, a mix of shock and disbelief crossing her face. "Wait, what? You're the billionaire Julian Merrick?" He nodded, a small smile tugging at his lips. "The same. I wanted to see you, to know you, without the title influencing anything. And I think I might have fallen for you while doing just that." For a long moment, Clara was silent, trying to process the revelation. Her mind raced with questions, but more than anything, her heart beat faster. She had laughed with him, shared small, intimate moments, and now the truth threatened to change everything. Julian watched her carefully, unsure how she would react. "I didn't want to deceive you," he added softly. "I only wanted to know the real you." Clara's lips parted, and she let out a small, nervous laugh. I don't know what to say. This is a lot." "I know," Julian said gently. "Take your time. I just needed you to know the truth. And I hope that this doesn't change how you feel about me." Clara looked into his eyes, searching for any hint of arrogance or pretense, but found none. Instead, she saw sincerity, vulnerability, and a quiet hope. The spark between them, already present, now burned brighter. But the question remained, would Clara's heart open fully to the billionaire she had once ignored? Clara steps back, still processing Julian's confession, and the city lights shimmer behind him. Will she see past his wealth and trust the man she has already come to care for? Or will the revelation push her away? Have you ever discovered someone wasn't who they seemed, and it changed everything? Comment below. Would you give them a chance? Clara sat on the edge of her sofa, the evening sunlight filtering through the blinds, casting stripes across the floor. Her mind raced, replaying Julian's confession over and over. He was a billionaire, the CEO of a global logistics empire, and the man she had laughed and shared small, intimate moments with was someone completely different from what she had believed. Her heart twisted with a mixture of excitement and doubt. She had grown attached to the simple, kind man who delivered packages, who asked about her favorite books, who remembered her small preferences. Now that image had been shattered. Could she trust him? Could she trust that the man who owned so much wealth and power was still the same person she had begun to care for? She pressed her palms against her eyes and whispered, "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" Meanwhile, Julian sat in his penthouse, replaying the conversation in his mind. He knew that revealing the truth was risky, but he had hoped that honesty would strengthen their connection. Instead, he could sense her hesitation even from afar. The next day, he showed up at the cafe where Clara worked, holding a small bouquet of her favorite daisies. He hesitated at the entrance, heart pounding, fearing rejection. "Clara," he said softly when she looked up, "I wanted to see you again. I didn't expect you to respond this way. Clara stepped back, raising her hand slightly. "Julian, I need space. I don't know how to feel right now." Her words stung, but he nodded, understanding her need to process. "I understand," he said quietly. "I'll wait. I just want you to know that my feelings haven't changed." Clara looked down at her hands, her fingers nervously twisting the pen she had been holding. She wanted to believe him, but a whirlwind of questions and doubts threatened to overwhelm her. "You weren't just a delivery boy," she murmured. "You're everything else too, and I don't know how to handle that." Julian stepped closer, his voice gentle. "Clara, I didn't lie to hurt you. I wanted to meet you without expectations, without the shadow of my wealth influencing you. I wanted to know the real you." Her eyes filled with tears, not from sadness but confusion. She wanted to trust him, to reach out and take his hand, but fear held her back. I'm afraid," she admitted. "Afraid that once I see the world you live in, I'll be nothing to you. Afraid that you only pretended to care for me as yourself, not the billionaire." Julian shook his head, his expression tender. "No, Clara. I care about you, me, not my title. I fell for the person who makes me laugh, who sees me when I'm just me. That hasn't changed." Clara wanted to believe him, but the shadow of doubt lingered. The truth of his identity made her feel vulnerable in a way she hadn't expected. She had built walls around her heart to protect herself from disappointment, and now Julian was standing at the edge of those walls, waiting. For the next few days, Clara avoided meeting him. She answered his messages politely but kept her distance, struggling to reconcile the kind, attentive man she knew with the powerful billionaire he truly was. Julian respected her space, though his heart ached with every unanswered message, every avoided glance. One evening, as Clara walked through the city park, she spotted Julian sitting on a bench, watching her approach. He stood, offering her a small, shy smile. "Clara, I know you're unsure, and I don't want to push you," he said. I need you to understand that I'm still the man you laughed with, the man who remembered your favorite coffee, the man who wants to see you happy." Clara felt her defenses weakening. The sincerity in his eyes was impossible to ignore. She looked away, taking a deep breath. "I don't want to lose what we have," she admitted softly. "And you won't," Julian said, stepping closer, voice steady and warm. "We just need to figure out how to navigate this together." Clara hesitated, torn between her fear and her growing affection. She finally nodded, her heart opening just a fraction. "Okay," she whispered. We'll try. Julian smiled, relief flooding his expression. Thank you, he said softly. That means more than you know. But even as they stood there, a part of Clara remained uncertain. Could she fully embrace a love tied to a world so different from her own? Could Julian truly keep his world and their connection separate? Or would the weight of his identity overwhelm the simplicity she had cherished? As they walked side by side, beginning to bridge the gap between worlds, a call from Julian's office buzzed insistently. Clara glanced at him, heart racing. Would his billionaire responsibilities pull him away? Or would he prove that their love was stronger than wealth and power? Have you ever had to choose between someone's world and their heart? Comment below. Would love survive the truth? A week later, fate seemed determined to test their tentative connection. Clara had agreed, cautiously, to accompany Julian to a charity gala hosted at his company's headquarters. She had insisted she would feel out of place among the city's elite, but Julian had been firm. I want you there, just as you are. No pretenses. The night arrived, and Clara's nerves fluttered like butterflies in her stomach. She wore a simple, elegant dress. Nothing extravagant, just enough to feel confident. Julian, in contrast, looked every bit the billionaire CEO, perfectly tailored suit, hair meticulously styled, and a presence that commanded attention. As they entered the gala, Clara felt herself shrinking in the grandeur of chandeliers, glittering glass, and sophisticated guests. Julian noticed immediately, gently resting his hand at the small of her back. I've got you, he whispered. Stay close. They moved through the crowd, and every few steps, people greeted Julian with smiles, handshakes, and polite chatter. Clara felt her insecurities creeping in, the distance between their worlds suddenly obvious. Yet Julian never let go of her hand. His calm presence was a steady anchor amid her swirling doubts. At one point, a misunderstanding nearly derailed the night. A wealthy socialite mistook Clara for one of the staff and made a snide comment about her attire. Clara's cheeks flushed with embarrassment, and she instinctively looked to Julian for support. Without missing a beat, he stepped forward, gently lifting her hand in his. She's my guest, he said firmly, and exactly where she belongs. The warmth in his tone, the quiet protectiveness, and the unmistakable sincerity made Clara's heart swell. She realized, in that moment, that Julian's wealth didn't intimidate him. It was his heart and intentions that defined him. Later, they found a quieter corner, away from the glitz and chatter. Julian leaned close, his voice low and intimate. I know it's a lot to take in, all of this, my world, my life, but I wanted you to see it, to understand me better. Clara nodded slowly, appreciating his thoughtfulness. It's a lot, she admitted, but not as overwhelming as I thought it would be, because you're here with me. Julian smiled, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. Exactly. I want you to see me, the real me, not just the billionaire in the headlines. The night continued, filled with conversations, laughter, and small moments where Julian subtly let Clara shine. Introducing her as his guest, sharing her insights about the charity's work, and ensuring her comfort in every interaction. Each gesture reinforced the bond they had begun to build, their worlds colliding in a way that was surprisingly seamless. As the gala drew to a close, Julian and Clara stepped onto a balcony overlooking the city skyline. The lights shimmered like stars, reflecting in Clara's wide, awe-filled eyes. Julian took her hand, his thumb brushing against hers, and said softly, I know it's not easy, crossing worlds like this, but I want you to know nothing, not even this, will change how I feel about you. Clara looked up at him, heart pounding. She could see the truth in his eyes, the sincerity in every gesture, and slowly her defenses began to melt. I believe you, she whispered. Just then, Julian's phone buzzed with an urgent work message. He glanced at it and sighed, a flicker of worry passing over his features. I have to step away for a moment, he said. I'll be right back. Clara nodded, feeling a strange mix of relief and anxiety. She trusted him, yet part of her wondered how their worlds would continue to collide. She watched him walk toward the elevator, feeling the empty space where his presence had anchored her just moments ago. As she looked out over the city, Clara realized something profound. Being with Julian wasn't about wealth or appearances. It was about choosing to be seen, understood, and cared for. And for the first time, she felt ready to embrace that choice fully. Just as Julian disappeared into the elevator, a sudden commotion in the gala's main hall caught Clara's attention. A misunderstanding involving a major donor threatened to escalate, and she realized she might be the only one who could help Julian navigate the situation. Would she step up and bridge their worlds, or would fear hold her back? Have you ever had to step outside your comfort zone for someone you care about? Comment below. Would you risk it for love? After the gala, Clara and Julian found themselves walking through the quiet streets, the city lights reflecting softly on the wet pavement from a recent rain. Clara's mind was still buzzing from the events of the evening, the grandeur of Julian's world, the subtle ways he had protected her, and the glimpses of a man who valued her presence over prestige. "Julian," she said hesitantly, "there's something I've been meaning to ask. Why did you disguise yourself as a delivery boy? It's unusual for someone in your position." Julian slowed, taking a deep breath. The night air was crisp, and the tension in his chest made him realize it was time to share the truth. "It wasn't just a whim," he began. "I've spent my whole life surrounded by wealth, people who see me only as the CEO, the billionaire. I wanted to step out of that world, just for a while, to experience life without the walls my status has built around me." Clara listened, intrigued, her curiosity softening her doubts. "I've missed normal moments," Julian continued, his voice low, almost confessional. "Simple things, coffee in the morning, walking through a park, noticing the little details people usually overlook. And then, I met you." Clara blinked, caught off guard. "Me?" He nodded, eyes locked on hers. "Yes, you laughed at the spilled flour in a bakery. You noticed the way the sunlight hit the windows. You cared about things that seem small but aren't. You reminded me there's a world beyond boardrooms and contracts." Clara felt her chest tighten. That's actually very sweet. But why the disguise? Why not tell me?" Julian hesitated, then admitted, "I was afraid that if I told you, you'd see the billionaire first and not the man I really am. I wanted you to see me for who I truly am, without wealth, without power." They paused on the bridge overlooking the river, the soft hum of the city below them. Clara could feel the weight of his words. She had laughed with him, shared moments, and confided in the man she thought was a delivery boy. And now, the truth revealed not only his identity but also the depth of his heart. "Julian," she whispered, "you've shown me the man behind the title. That matters more than the wealth, more than the status." He reached for her hand, holding it gently. "I'm not perfect. I've made mistakes. But what I've learned, what I've realized, is that the people who touch our hearts, who change the way we see the world, are more important than anything else. You've done that for me, Clara." Clara's eyes welled with tears, not of sadness but of understanding. She realized the depth of his vulnerability, how much trust he had placed in her by revealing his secret. It was a gift, not just a confession. "Thank you for trusting me," she said softly. "I care about you too, Julian. Not because you're a billionaire, but because you're you." He smiled, relief and happiness lighting up his features. "And that's all I ever wanted you to see." For the next few days, their connection deepened. Julian invited Clara to his penthouse, not to dazzle her, but to share moments, simple and sincere. They cooked together, shared music, and laughed like two people who had known each other far longer than they actually had. Julian's world, once intimidating, now felt accessible because he shared it with her in a way that mattered most, with honesty and heart. Yet, even as their bond strengthened, Clara couldn't help but wonder, how would their lives continue outside these stolen moments? Could love survive in a world divided by wealth? Or would the reality of Julian's empire threaten to pull them apart? Julian, sensing her unspoken worries, held her hand and whispered, "Clara, I can't promise that my life will be simple, but I can promise that I'll choose you every day, if you'll let me." Clara looked into his eyes and saw nothing but sincerity. For the first time, she felt the possibility of a love that wasn't defined by money, status, or assumptions, but by choice, trust, and shared hearts. As they walked back toward the city streets, the night sky above them seemed to glow a little brighter. For the first time, they both felt that love, in its purest form, was within reach. The next morning, Clara receives a mysterious invitation to a weekend getaway, an opportunity Julian has prepared to bring them even closer. But will stepping into his full world overwhelm her, or will it solidify their connection? Have you ever discovered someone's truth and had to decide whether to trust them? Comment below. Would you give love a chance? The weekend getaway Julian had planned was nothing short of magical. Yet it wasn't the grandeur that mattered. It was the intimacy he had woven into every detail. They arrived at a quiet lakeside cabin far from the city, a place where neither of them would be interrupted by emails, meetings, or social expectations. Clara stepped out of the car, taking a deep breath of the crisp mountain air. Julian stood beside her, smiling, and handed her a simple basket. "For breakfast tomorrow," he said softly. "I thought we could cook together. Nothing fancy, just us." Clara laughed lightly, warmth spreading in her chest. "I think I like this billionaire side of you already." Julian chuckled, shaking his head. "You haven't seen anything yet." Inside the cabin, they settled into the cozy living area, sunlight streaming through large windows, reflecting off the wooden floors. Julian poured coffee, handing her a cup with a teasing bow. "For the woman who ignored me once and now holds my entire attention." Clara nearly laughed out loud. "Ignored you? I don't think it was intentional. But you certainly made an impression." The morning unfolded with simple pleasures, cooking together, teasing each other over spilled ingredients, stealing glances and laughing until their sides hurt. Clara noticed how effortlessly Julian adapted to this life of simplicity, how genuine his laughter sounded when it wasn't in the glare of boardroom lights. Later, they took a walk along the lake, the water shimmering like liquid glass in the afternoon sun. Julian took her hand, his thumb brushing gently over her knuckles. "Clara, I've never met anyone like you," he said quietly. "You make me want to be better, not for the world, but for you." Clara's heart skipped a beat. She had begun to understand the depths of Julian's sincerity, the way he saw her, not as someone from outside his world, but as someone integral to his happiness. "And you've made me realize," she whispered, "that wealth and power aren't what matter. Connection does. Heart does. You do." They paused at the edge of the lake, silence stretching comfortably between them. Julian tilted his head, studying her face. "I want you to know that I'll never expect you to change for me," he said softly. "You don't need to step into my world unless you want to. I just want you beside me, sharing moments like these." Clara felt tears prick at her eyes, not of sadness but of overwhelming gratitude. I want that," she admitted, voice trembling. "I want to see where this could go." Julian smiled, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. "Then we'll do it together, one step at a time." The day passed in gentle harmony. They swam in the lake, shared stories of childhood dreams, and even danced barefoot on the wooden deck to music Julian had brought along. Each laugh, each touch, each whispered confession deepened their bond. Clara realized that trust, honesty, and shared experiences were far more powerful than wealth or social standing. Julian, in turn, felt a profound sense of peace. He was not just a billionaire CEO. He was a man in love, truly seen by the woman who had once ignored him. As night fell, they sat by the fireplace, the warmth of the flames reflecting the warmth growing between them. Julian handed Clara a blanket, draping it over her shoulders. "I've wanted to tell you something for a while," he murmured. I love you, Clara. Not for the moments we share, not for how perfect they are, but for you. All of you." Clara's breath caught. She reached for his hand, squeezing it tightly. "I love you too, Julian," she admitted, a weight lifting from her heart. "I've been afraid, but now, I feel ready to let us be us." The fire crackled as they leaned into each other, hearts beating in sync, the world outside the cabin fading away. In this quiet, shared space, Julian and Clara discovered a love built not on wealth, status, or appearances, but on authenticity, trust, and mutual devotion. For the first time, both of them understood that true love was not about grand gestures or luxury. It was about connection, moments of vulnerability, and the courage to choose each other, again and again. As they watched the stars above the lake, Julian reached for his phone. A message from his business associate lit the screen, urgent news that could demand his attention immediately. Would he have to leave Clara's side? Or would their bond prove stronger than the pressures of his empire? Have you ever experienced a love that grew stronger through simple moments and honesty? Comment below. What small gestures have made someone special to you? The morning after their idyllic weekend, Clara woke to the gentle hum of the lake outside, sunlight dancing through the curtains. Julian was still asleep, the faint rhythm of his breathing grounding her. For a fleeting moment, everything felt perfect. Then the phone buzzed. Clara, half awake, reached for it, expecting a simple message. Instead, it was from a friend at the cafe. Clara, you should see this. Julian's name is everywhere. People are talking about his new scandal. Her heart sank. She tossed the phone onto the bed and turned to Julian, who was now sitting up, rubbing his eyes. What is it? She asked, a tremor in her voice. Julian's face paled as he glanced at the screen. It's complicated, he said quietly. Some rumors from my business world. They're blowing out of proportion, but they're being reported everywhere. Clara felt a strange mix of fear and disbelief. She had entered Julian's world fully, letting herself trust him, believe in him. And now, whispers from that world threatened to intrude, to shatter the fragile peace they had built. As the day unfolded, Clara began noticing subtle changes in Julian. He was distracted, his eyes distant, constantly checking his phone. He answered calls in hushed tones, frowning over emails, and sighed in frustration when he thought no one was watching. Clara tried to reach him. Julian, is everything okay? She asked gently. He turned to her, forcing a small smile. Yes, just business stuff. Don't worry about it. But Clara's intuition told her otherwise. The warmth they had shared over the weekend seemed to have retreated, replaced by tension. She felt powerless, unsure if she could reach him amidst the invisible walls of his world. Later that evening, they attended a charity dinner. Julian was presentable, charming even, but his mind seemed elsewhere. Guests whispered, pointing discreetly, and Clara could sense their curiosity. She felt exposed, as though stepping further into Julian's life brought unwanted attention. During a quiet moment on the balcony, Clara finally confronted him. Julian, talk to me. I feel like something's wrong, and I don't understand why you're shutting me out. Julian ran a hand through his hair, conflicted. Clara, I didn't want you dragged into this. I wanted to protect you, but the rumors, I can't escape them, and I don't know how to handle it without losing you too. Clara's heart tightened. You don't lose me because of rumors. You lose me if you don't let me in. I care about you, Julian, not the headlines, not the empire. I care about you. He looked at her, torn between pride, fear, and love. I'm afraid, Clara. Afraid that this world, my life, will overwhelm you. That the person you fell for isn't really me anymore. And I don't want to push you away, but I also don't know how to make it better. Clara took his hands, gripping them firmly. We'll figure it out. Together. That's what love is, Julian. Not running from problems, not hiding. We face them. For a moment, Julian's eyes softened, the tension easing. He leaned close, whispering, You make me braver than I've ever been. But just as the night seemed to calm, a social media post flashed on a screen across the balcony. Misinterpreted footage of Julian speaking to a rival executive. The caption implied betrayal and arrogance. Clara froze, feeling the familiar fear creeping back. Julian's face mirrored her worry, and they both realized how easily their bubble of trust could be threatened by the outside world. As Clara prepared to leave the balcony, Unsure if she could withstand the pressure of Julian's world, a notification pinged on her phone. An anonymous tip revealing a shocking secret about Julian's company. Would this revelation pull them apart, or would they face it together? Have you ever had outside pressures threaten your relationship? Comment below. How would you handle a loved one's world crashing in around you? The following morning, the city hummed with activity, but Clara felt suspended in her own world. The anonymous tip, the rumors, and the flashes of media scrutiny weighed heavily on her mind. Julian, too, seemed restless, pacing the floor of his penthouse as if each step could solve the unsolvable. Clara watched him for a moment, taking in the man she had come to care for deeply. Wealth, status, and public scrutiny had surrounded him, but beneath it all was the Julian she had laughed with, cooked with, and shared quiet moments beside. A man whose heart had reached out to hers despite the walls he'd built around himself. She finally spoke, her voice soft but firm. Julian, we can't keep running from this. From the headlines, from the pressures, from everyone else's expectations. We have to decide what we truly want. Julian stopped pacing, letting out a slow breath. I know. And part of me wants to hide, to retreat to a world where no one can judge us, where we can just be safe. Clara stepped closer, taking his hands in hers. But safety isn't love. Love is choosing each other even when it's messy, even when it's complicated. I choose you, Julian. If you choose me, we face it together. He looked down at their intertwined hands, the weight of his emotions reflected in his eyes. The headlines, the gossip, the expectations, they could all crumble around them, but in this moment nothing else mattered. He could let fear dictate his choices, or he could embrace the risk and the reward of a love that felt undeniably real. Julian's chest rose and fell as he weighed his options. Then, slowly, with deliberate clarity, he spoke. Clara, I don't want to hide from anything anymore. Not from the world, not from my responsibilities, and definitely not from you. I choose you. I choose us. Tears pricked at Clara's eyes. I choose us too, she whispered, relief and joy flooding her chest. They embraced, the city skyline stretching out behind them like a silent witness to their decision. For the first time, Julian felt the enormity of his choice not as a burden, but as liberation. He could be the billionaire CEO, but he could also be the man in love, fully present without apology. Later that day, they addressed the media together, not as a business statement, but as a declaration of partnership and trust. Julian stood beside Clara, introducing her not just as his companion, but as the woman who had reminded him what it meant to live, laugh, and love without pretense. Clara, in turn, felt empowered. She had stepped into a world that initially intimidated her, but instead of being overwhelmed, she had found her own voice, her own strength, and the courage to embrace love on her terms. The outside pressures didn't disappear overnight, but together, they had built a foundation of honesty, vulnerability, and trust. Every rumor, every misunderstanding, every challenge was now a shared obstacle rather than a wedge between them. That evening, back in the quiet of Julian's penthouse, he pulled Clara close. I don't know what the future holds, he admitted, brushing a gentle kiss across her forehead. But I do know this, whatever comes, we face it together. Clara smiled, resting her head against his chest. Together? She echoed, feeling the warmth of certainty settle around them. For the first time in both their lives, wealth and status felt irrelevant. What mattered was choice, honesty, and the courage to embrace a love that had grown stronger through trials, laughter, and shared moments. As they held each other, Julian's phone buzzed with a final notification. A new opportunity that could take his company to unprecedented heights. But this time, he didn't rush. He looked down at Clara and whispered, Whatever I do, we do it together. Would their love remain strong in the face of new challenges? Or would ambition test the bond they had fought to secure? Have you ever had to choose love over fear? Comment below. Would you take the leap for someone who makes your heart feel like home? The morning sun filtered gently through the tall windows of Julian's penthouse, casting a warm glow over the city below. Clara stretched, the weight of the past few weeks feeling lighter than it had in months. The rumors, the scrutiny, the whispered doubts. They all seemed distant now, overshadowed by the love that had taken root between her and Julian. Julian entered the room carrying 2 steaming mugs of coffee. He smiled at her, the kind of smile that made her heart skip, the one that had first drawn her in when he was just a delivery boy in disguise. "Morning," he said softly, handing her a mug. Clara took it, their fingers brushing, and she felt a warmth that had nothing to do with the coffee. "Morning," she replied, her voice steady, confident, and full of affection. "Sleep well." "I did," Julian admitted. "I slept knowing that no matter what comes, we've chosen each other. And that makes everything else easier." They sat together by the window, sipping coffee in companionable silence. Julian glanced down at Clara, taking in her relaxed posture, the softness in her eyes. "You know," he said, breaking the silence, "when I first met you, I never imagined we'd be here, sitting side by side, facing the world together. I thought I had to hide who I was to be worthy of your attention." Clara shook her head, a small smile tugging at her lips. "And I thought you were just some delivery boy with awkward charm. Funny how life surprises us." Julian chuckled, reaching out to tuck a loose strand of hair behind her ear. "I guess the universe has its way of making things, right?" Weeks passed, and life gradually returned to a rhythm that balanced Julian's responsibilities with their shared moments. Clara continued working at her bakery, but Julian made it a point to be present, not just as a billionaire or CEO, but as a partner who cherished every ordinary and extraordinary moment with her. One afternoon, as Clara arranged fresh pastries on display, Julian entered, hands full of flowers. "For you," he said, setting them on the counter. "Because even after all this time, I want to make sure you know how much you mean to me." Clara laughed softly, touched by the gesture. "You're impossible," she said fondly, inhaling the fragrance of the flowers. "No," he corrected gently. "I'm just in love with the most incredible woman I've ever met." Clara felt her heart swell. All the misunderstandings, the secrets, the challenges, they had led them here, to trust, to honesty, to a love that was steadfast, unshaken by wealth or status. That evening, they returned to the balcony overlooking the city, a place that had become their sanctuary. Julian held Clara close, the gentle breeze carrying the scent of the city and the quiet promise of shared tomorrows. "Clara, I want you to know something," he whispered. "I'll never take this for granted. Not the love we share, not the moments we have, and certainly not you." Clara leaned against him, closing her eyes. "I trust you," she said softly. "Completely." Julian kissed her forehead, a gentle seal on their journey. "Then we move forward together," he said. "No more secrets, no more walls. Just us." And in that moment, they both knew that they had found something rare. A love that transcended misunderstandings, social expectations, and even the initial distractions of wealth. They had chosen each other freely, and that choice carried a weight and a joy nothing else could match. Weeks turned into months, and their bond only deepened. Julian involved Clara in his world not to impress her, but to share it. Boardrooms became less intimidating with her laughter echoing in the hallways. Charity events became brighter with her kindness lighting the room. And every day, Julian was reminded that love, true, sincere, patient love, was the greatest luxury he could ever possess. On a quiet evening, as they walked hand in hand along the city streets, Clara glanced up at Julian. "Do you ever think about how it all started? With me thinking you were a delivery boy." Julian smiled, squeezing her hand gently. "Every day," he admitted. "It's incredible to think that a simple act, coffee delivered with a smile, could lead to all of this." Clara laughed softly, leaning into him. "I guess love really does come in unexpected ways." Julian kissed the top of her head. "Unexpected, yes, but perfect in every way that matters." As they continued down the street, side by side, the city lights reflecting off the pavement, both knew that no headline, no rumor, no world of privilege could ever change what they had found in each other. Their love was built on trust, choice, and shared moments. and that was more than enough. In that simple truth, they discovered their happily ever after. Not in grandeur or possessions, but in each other. Though the world continued around them, bustling with expectation and scrutiny, Julian and Clara's hearts remained steadfast. The next challenge of life awaited, but they had already proven that together, love could withstand anything. Would their journey bring new surprises, or would they continue building their life in peaceful harmony? Have you ever found love where you least expected it? Comment below. How did someone's small act or honesty change your heart? Thank you so much for watching my story all the way to the end. Your support means everything. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and drop a comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts.